Welcome in everyone to the On the Call podcast. You're listening to Joe Chambers and Spencer Tomset, the podcast for sports broadcasters by sports broadcasters. This is season 2, episode 12. And yet again, Spencer, as I say every episode, but it's the truth, we have a special guest today. We have a good friend of mine, Mr. Adam Pohl, voice of the Mount St. Mary's basketball teams and voice of the Bowie Baysox, the Double A affiliate of the Baltimore Orioles. Let's welcome him in, Spencer.
Hey, what's happening, everybody?
Hi, Adam. We appreciate you coming onto the podcast. One of the things we do always, the first thing we always do is we introduce our podcast with a guest with a warm welcome, as they all deserve. So one of the first questions I ask Adam is just describing your journey in this industry through obviously, you went to UNC at Chapel Hill, and now your ways to the minors and Mount St. Mary's. Just discuss how that got a part in your life.
Ooh, that's a great question. So for me personally, it's been quite a journey. And to be honest, it's a journey that has really even evolved. So I'll kind of update you in the next few minutes on that front. But for me, in my start, I think that I had a start similar to many that are passionate about sports broadcasting. I did not have a past family oriented or, there wasn't that little in of this is how you do it. That was the biggest question. I was a decent musician. I was from a very musical family, or am from a musical family. And for me personally, I knew when I was a music major at the University of North Carolina that more than likely I wasn't going to play a trumpet for a living, and also that I that I didn't want to be a teacher. So my whole life I wanted to do this, and I couldn't shake it. I wanted to be a broadcaster, and for me, nearing the end of my collegiate career, I had to figure out, okay, I got to go for this and figure out a way to try to get on the air and try to see if I can do this. And wow, I mean, obviously my career has not led to, calling the Super Bowl or being a voice with my favorite major league team growing up. In the Orioles as some part of the dream was, but I'm so fortunate for this journey and for what I've been able to do in calling probably around 3,000 games in my career. So pretty cool.
All right, Adam, I got to ask because we had Jody Norstad on the show earlier in this season, and he knew he wanted to be a broadcaster when he started in college. But part of his extracurricular activities, he was a part of the choir, the local choir with his college. So he talked about how it helped him with not only good posture, but also lung capacity. So as a musician, how much do you attribute your trumpet playing to your ability to not have to take as deep of breaths in between plays?
I like that. I've been asked a lot of things, never that, Spencer. That's a great question. That was my thing. I could always play really loud. So the ability to as you say, breathe from the diaphragm is something obviously that comes very natural for me. I think though the biggest thing for music was that, I grew up watching an incredible amount of sporting events and taking an incredible amount of music lessons. I never really had a broadcasting lesson, but all in all, the thoughts of things like phrasing, of, bringing out the big moment, of using not just intonation, but also dynamics in your broadcast is very, very important. There's so many announcers that do it. It's kind of crazy because obviously we're all English speakers, but I think one of the most musical broadcasters in the world is the famous soccer broadcaster, Andres Cantor. Mm-hmm. And it's literally like, the ball's at midfield and he's at a whisper. And by the time that it gets to, the build of the play, he's like a mountain about to erupt and he's ready for that, to be a goal and the goal call. But the goal call would not be, what is so famous if he did not have the exciting buildup. And I think that I've tried to use that kind of theory, a very musical method to my broadcasting.
I got to tie in another element to your collegiate experience, because one of the things we love to do on the show is do a deep dive on people's LinkedIn profiles and see the different activities and things they've done. So Phi Mu Alpha, how did that shape you into the broadcaster you are today?
Oh my goodness. How about that? Well, it really prepared me for the post-game drinking. Yeah. That's awesome. No. So I am as they call it, a symphonian.
Yep.
I went to the University of North Carolina. It's kind of cool at UNC. Andy Griffith was a Phi Mu Alpha guy from UNC. And so is the greatest sports broadcaster in the history of the state of North Carolina, Woody Durham, who I was fortunate enough, the voice of the Tar Heels for about 40 years, to be his intern for a year, kind of be the guy that got him coffee and cranberry juice. But yeah, I'll be honest, it was life shaping for me. My Phi Mu Alpha buds are still really my best friends. So we went to college a long time ago, but we're still very close. And the only sad thing is most of my friends from college, they still live in North Carolina, so they get to see each other here and there. And it's hard for me to get down there and get together with them as often as I'd like.
We got to talk to.
I loved it. I mean, I could not have loved it more.
Oh, of course. We got to talk to Wes Durham, because we just had him on the show earlier this season. We got to let him know that you got to introduce you guys somehow and let him know, hey, you were an intern for a year with the whole coffee and cranberry juice bit. I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Yeah, the Mount was just in Buffalo, and is Woody's passed, sadly, and for me it's just my little homage, right? We had cranberry juice as a part of a breakfast one of the mornings, and I definitely drank some cranberry juice and thought about Woody. So just a great guy and an amazing broadcaster.
Oh, he absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Part of that as well, when you were continuing on in your journey, you mentioned at Chapel Hill, that you were more not in the sports broadcasting side, but you started to morph into that. And one of the things you were fortunate enough to do is essentially get right into the minor league baseball scene around those experiences. And certainly you could talk about times that you've been with your stint with the Burlington Indians as well as the Salem Avalanche. But one chunk of your professional career was with the Frederick Keys, and how you kind of evolved from the starting out as a director of broadcasting all the way up to assistant general manager in your role. So I'm interested to know what that experience was like for you in working with the Frederick Keys.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you, because I don't want to, in my career in minor league baseball right now, I've actually stepped away, from broadcasting day in and day out to run the marketing department in Bowie. And I'm kind of more, here on this role of, bringing some great young broadcasters up as well in their mid-20s with the Baysox. But let's go back to the Keys and my time in that. It was such a unique experience, and I think it's really valuable. I see it in many different ways, Spencer. In minor league baseball, one path is the standalone broadcast path, right? And it's the path of you're a part-time employee working in the lower levels of the minors. Frederick Keys, of course, single A baseball at that time. Salem Avalanche, the same. And the big thing on that front is if you're just doing the broadcasting, right? The pay is really, really tough. You're able to do some things in the off season. Obviously, you have a little bit more flexibility, viability. You could go somewhere else across the country and have opportunities to broadcast, things like that are beneficial in many ways. Another benefit to that is that it can allow you more time to network for yourself, right? Because you're not really working for anybody. You're just your job is calling the games. I took a different path. My path was to create a full-time career out of my broadcast job. But when you do that quite often in the minor leagues, especially the single A level, you need to have a viability as a business person.
Yep.
So this has been the unique trajectory of my career, is that not every place that I've gone to work has the need for a business person been in the same avenue. And I've basically sold these jobs on saying, look, just let me call the games and whatever, I'll do that. Like I'll sell the sponsorship or, so when I went to Frederick initially, my job was a non-sales position and, but I sold on the side. So they were really happy that first year or two. It made me kind of stand out in a bit to be somebody that was doing even a little bit beyond my job. And then I kind of lucked into the opportunity to run their marketing department. And after a year was elevated to being the assistant general manager of the Keys. But really, even as AGM, I was really just heading up marketing. And when you run marketing, which is what I do for the Baysox now, your job is in essence to find avenues and ways to bring more people to the stadium. And I have found over the years that I have a knack for that. Maybe I'm a little bit of a carnival barker, but I love it. And I don't know if I love it as much as I love broadcasting, but I love it. And it was a great experience to be a leader within an organization. And I really, really enjoyed that as well.
Adam, another thing I want to mention is obviously with the Frederick Keys, you've been around the Orioles as like their farm system. What are some of your favorite memories with the Keys?
Oof. On the field, I mean, there's so many. We won the most ridiculous championship in 2007. Probably one of the last minor league teams to win a title with a losing record, right? It's kind of like it's like in the NCAA tournament when, the team that's in last place comes on to win it. But the Keys were super lucky to make the playoffs that year and won it. And that year was probably, all together, all hands on deck. 2007 was probably the craziest year I've ever worked in baseball. It kind of feels like I was more living in a movie. I had an unbelievable manager named Tommy Thompson, who was probably one of the craziest human beings on the face of the earth. And I say that in the best possible way, just an amazing human being, just a wild child. And it was an incredible experience. And then, I start running the marketing a few years later. And in 2011, marketing and broadcasting, we had Manny Machado, Jonathan Scope. We win the Carolina League title again. That time we were the best team in the league, so it felt a little bit different. Didn't feel like we were robbing a bank, right? And altogether, just an incredible experience. The people obviously were so great to work with, and Brandon McGee, still with the Frederick Keys, one of my best friends in the world, that I was so fortunate to work with there. But there's so many other people. In my marketing department, we had an incredible crew. And one of the things I was so proud of was that the people that I worked with in Frederick really moved on to bigger and better things in sports. And I love that. Tim Murray, who was my broadcast partner then, is one of the headliners of the Vegas Sports Information Network, VSIN. And Bridget McCabe, my assistant, marketing head, is now with the Commanders, and Brandon Apter went on, who was another one, went on to work at AAA baseball, and my video guy ran the video board for the Pirates and the New York Islanders. It was just one after another. We had so much success with the people that I worked with, and it was a lot of fun, fun times.
And I think that also plays into, you mentioned the sort of unique situation you had with trying to market yourself and focus on the business side of things. And a lot of people, especially those who are young aspiring broadcasters, don't realize that, especially in the day and age of social media, you have to market yourself and set yourself aside to where instead of employers can find somebody else who can potentially be the same as you or for less pay, X, Y, Z, other factors, you make it impossible for employers not to hire you. And part of that as well is with you taking on marketing, ticket sales. And we've talked about this. We've had several other broadcasters on the podcast thus far that have talked about how, yes, we got to call the games, But most of the minor leagues, all they care about is, okay, it doesn't matter how good your demo reel is or how much you blow away a manager. They look and go, all right, you're going to sit on this phone 8 to 5 and you are going to sell tickets and you're going to try to get people in the stands. That doesn't seem like it was too much of a problem for you because you said you seem to have a good skill with selling tickets.
Yeah, I mean, I have a theory of the case on the marketing side. There's no doubt about it. And cold calling is not so much fun. But I mean, yes, there's no doubt. But it doesn't matter what that job is, to be honest, Spencer. I heard this is about a year ago. I just was fascinated by it. Somebody asked Barack Obama. They said, and of course I'm paraphrasing, but they said in essence, I have this degree. I've done all these things to set up my career. What job should I take to put myself in the best opportunity to advance my career? And what President Obama said was very simple. He said, it doesn't matter what job, basically. What matters is that when you get in that job, that you aren't just ordinary. In essence, you got to be extraordinary. He didn't say it exactly like that, but you've got to take that opportunity. And whatever your job is, you've got to be great at it. And I've learned that a little bit the hard way, to be honest, because the first jobs that I had in baseball, I was not great at it. And I'm talking about the not the broadcast side. Obviously, I was not the level of broadcaster that I was just going to rise to the top of the food chain, immediately with that. So. Or just leaning on broadcast ability, let's say. So I really, really believe that, it's so important to find that niche, right? And if you're going to do this on that full-time side, to make yourself a commodity, make yourself a valuable player with a team. I think I love basketball. And not everyone has to score 20 points to be a great basketball player. If you're setting the screen and getting the offensive rebound, kicking it out, you're an integral piece of your team winning. And that's what I try to do now as a leader in our organization with Bowie. In my team, I run a team of 6 people. We have an overall goal as a unit, and then everybody is kind of in charge of their own piece of the puzzle, and everybody is integral to us winning the game. And that's kind of how I look at it. Almost more like coaching a basketball team, than selling tickets per se. But yeah, I feel very passionately about it. And I think that, it can be hard, the nature of the beast, where you don't feel like this broadcast side is valued as much, but in the same regard, minor league baseball's value to you is more in experience, because the best way to get better is to broadcast a lot. And you can really create your style. You can really have a great understanding of how to prepare for games, of how to tell news stories, how to keep things fresh. It's really an incredible challenge to call minor league baseball. And it's a wonderful thing.
I like what you said about the trying to be that piece or trying to be that transition guy on the floor who doesn't necessarily get 20 points or ends up being the star to get the double-double or triple-double or anything along those lines. And certainly you've also been a part of that. I mentioned already that we like to do a deep dive on people's LinkedIn.
Yes. And
you've certainly been a part of that in your particular role. So I'm interested to know, do you still buy Goodyear tires?
I do, yes. Sadly, I got to buy a few here in the next month, but yes. So that was the thing, not to take this down a sad path by any ways, but the Orioles, made a great hire in 2019, leading into 2020. I was angling. I'd kind of put all my chips in that basket. You got to reach an age. You've got a young family. You're making a lot of sacrifices to go for this. And I didn't get it. I was very close, but I didn't get it. And of course, I could have hung on. And what I mean by get it, I didn't become an Orioles broadcaster. And I'd been in the Orioles system for 14 years, So I knew when I didn't get it, I knew what it meant, and for me. And so my initial thought, and this is how things evolve in life, was let's see if the Baysox let me continue as their broadcaster. And I'm going to continue doing my work that I love so much with Mount St. Mary's as well, calling games there. And then I'm going to just work a jobby job, right? So I got a job with a great company, Grafcom, and then I got this unbelievable opportunity to run a regional marketing program with Goodyear tires in this startup. And I won't go into the whole Goodyear thing, but in essence, over time, this evolved and morphed, and here I am, about a year and a half after taking that Goodyear job, this marketing position opens with the Baysox. And I knew that if I took this marketing job with the Baysox, I had to go all in, and that would mean kind of stepping away from the broadcast side, but on the Baysox side. But for me, I still get to call my Mount games. Obviously, I kind of I'm like the only person I look forward to the winter because I love broadcasting so much. I also am very fortunate. I do updates on DC radio, 2 mornings a week, Thursday and Friday mornings. So that kind of scratches my broadcast itch as well. It's kind of funny, like you do all these minor league games and you get on DC radio and the biggest show in the area doing a 1-minute update, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh, I heard you on the radio," and it's like, yeah, I've been on the radio a long time, but I feel so fortunate to do that on 106.7 The Fan in DC. I mean, that's a top 10 market.
Yep.
But really, to be honest, I'm trying to get out of this mode that we can talk about this mode, but of just trying to get other things, and so for me in broadcasting right now, I'm super happy with where I'm at and what I'm doing, and I'm really, really enjoying it, and it feels great.
Adam, one of the next things I want to mention is obviously you mentioned your time at Mount St. Mary's.
Yes.
For the listeners out there, I went to school at Mount St. Mary's and graduated in 2019 with my bachelor's in business. Then I got my master's in 2021. So I worked as a manager for the men's basketball team. And Adam, obviously being the voice, I met with him and started to get to know him in the fall of 2015. So I've known Adam for almost 9 years.
Wow.
So
yeah, how about that? I can't. You're right. Golly, time flies.
Yeah. Yes, and so Adam's been the voice for the Mount for years before I was there. But he's been the Mount, and Mount St. Mary's is located in Emmitsburg, Maryland, just about 20 minutes south of Gettysburg. And obviously the Mount has had a lot of great memories. We're a small school. We were in the Northeast Conference for years, and then just last season we transitioned to the MAC, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference.
Yes.
And obviously,
I'm glad you said that. Sometimes I have a tough time with that acronym.
So now, Spencer, I don't know if you know, but the Northeast Conference, the NEC, what the Mountain used to be in, their playoff games used to be whoever with the higher seed. So it's like a home court advantage. But now
home
the MAC,
site, yes.
Now the MAC goes to Atlantic City, plays at Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall. Now, one of the things before we get into your experiences at the Mount, Adam, how is that you think affecting how do you think that's affecting schools where they're playing these championships and conference tournaments at a neutral site instead of like at a home, instead of at the school's home court? How do you think of that as an advantage, like in your opinion? With the Mount obviously going from like no more home court advantage to driving up 3 or 4 hours up north to go to Atlantic City.
It is a little bit bizarre, obviously, when we've been doing it a different ways for so long, right, Joe? I obviously loved the home sites of it because, it really does put a lot of value in the regular season, and playing at home, trying to win on the road is so tough. And I say that even though in my 10 years, this is kind of crazy, in my 10 years in the NEC calling Mount basketball, the Mount won more road playoff games than everyone else in the league combined. We were not the team you wanted to play, on the road. I like host, it was unbelievable. We were it felt like we knocked somebody off every year. But But it's interesting. There's another element to it too. So like the NEC plays, I think this is even more important actually than home road. The NEC plays their first round on a Wednesday. They play their second round on a Saturday, and then the title game on Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
You get a lot of time between the games. They also reseed. So let's say you're the 1 seed and you beat the 8 seed, but then the 7 seed wins. I believe they reseed, and then you would play the 7 seed, right?
Yeah, so I believe that's correct.
It's a little bit tougher, right, as a top seed, because the reality is, like, if you're the 1 seed, it just kind of goes as it's diagrammed, right?
It's like the NCAA tournament.
Right. So in the 2023 MAC tournament, the last place team, Marist, the 11 seed, upset the 6 seed. Well, in that opening round, well, they got to play the 3rd place team next, not the 1st place team. So it's kind of a different dynamic. I do think, though, that there's a lot of benefit, obviously, to the leagues financially to do it this way. And there's something pretty special about making a run over a few days in a row. So it's wild, man, though, to play 4 months of basketball, living and dying with every game. And then it's like, all right, here we go. Let's go to Atlantic City and try to have one heck of a week. And obviously, that's the world that the Mount lives in now. So super excited. For what's upcoming for the Mount in that regard, but even long term, obviously, to be a part of this for years to come.
Absolutely. Here's a major callback for you, and this is exactly why it's a good thing that it's happening this year instead of last year, because Adam here served as a director of membership for the Central Maryland Chamber. Imagine trying to be in that meeting room, talking to those businesses of like, yeah, we're losing the tournament. Imagine we're losing the home tournament at St. Mary's.
Yes. I mean, I for my work with the local Chamber of Commerce stuff, when I got out of sports, that's kind of one of the funny things. I worked in 3 places, like we talked about briefly before, Spencer, and I found myself, number one, like you work for Goodyear, people are trying to talk cars with you. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I want to talk sports, So that was always kind of funny. But number 2 was like people in that on the Chamber side would say, wait, you do what? I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta be away here because we're doing this game. And, so it's kind of, it obviously is a little bit of a better fit as far as understanding what your role is for me to be working in sports with my radio in the mornings than my Mount St. Mary's and traveling with them now. There's no doubt about that.
So I guess to hook back on what Joe was talking about, we talked to several different greats about their experiences calling games for colleges, whether they've been voices of respective teams or even voices of the entire athletic department in a sense. So in your case, which memories stand out to you in your time with Mount St. Mary's that made it more meaningful for you to be on the broadcaster side?
Well, it's just the Mount is a hidden gem. When you're talking about college basketball, it's not really all about the size of the school. It's the same thing with college football. If you're the college football voice at Indiana, it's like, I mean, that's a great gig, but it's about college basketball, right?
Yep.
So the Mount has this amazing history in college basketball. The National Coach of the Year receives the Jim Phelan Award. He was the Mount's coach for 49 seasons. And in those 49 seasons, he won a national championship at the Division II level. He took them out to 5 Final Fours, and then took them out D1, and the Mount's been to 6 tournaments. There's a great history of winning basketball at the Mount. So with all that being said, I came in not at one of the apexes of that history. I mean, when I came in, the NEC is one of the smaller conferences in the Mount, was in effect one of the 2 or 3 bottom teams in the NEC. Going into my first year, our new head coach was named Jamie and Christian. We had these 2 transfers named Rashad Wack and Sam Prescott. And my expectation was that we were going to be bad. But it was my first year. I was the voice of a Division I team. I mean, this was going to be great. What happened that year? And that first year was remarkable. I mean, it was unbelievable. We were, I think, 2-7 in the league. And then we figured it out. And we did not lose for maybe 5 or 6 weeks, playing 2 games a week. I mean, I don't remember the exact number of wins we had in a row, but we went from like 2-7 to 9-7, let's say. And then we went into the tournament and we won, we pulled 2 upsets on the road. As I mentioned before, that's what we did, including knocking off the number 1 seed. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there, in the NEC title game, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God. So that was an unbelievable experience. The next year was incredible. And I'll only mention one or 2 others, but the next year, 2014, we really, really should have been eliminated in the quarterfinal. We were the best teams in the league, and we were getting whooped. I mean, we were just having that nightmare game against a really good team, even though the team was below us in the standings. There were really 5 teams that year that could win the tournament, and we were playing one of them, and we were down by 19 in the second half. And we went on this miraculous run. We came back from 12 points down with 1:54 left to win with a 3 with 2 seconds left. I mean, it was unbelievable, and that propelled us to the tournament. We should have gotten knocked down in the first round, and now here we are dancing, and that experience was amazing. We've also had runs to the NCAA tournament in 2017, another Jamie and Christian team, which was such a magical team with Junior Robinson, Elijah Long. That was probably the most dominant Mount team I broadcast. They were just exceptional in league play. And then the heart and the grit, Dan Engelstad, our current coach. I'm still fond of Dan's first team. I traveled with that team in 2019. There was no reason for them to win any games. And we were the youngest team in the nation, and we went on a run. We went 4-3 in our last 7. You could tell we were building something. And what was so special about that was 2 years later that those same guys that really took it on the chin for an entire season went to the NCAA tournament. And I'll be so fond of that. That was the 2021 Mount Championship team. So
the first year after COVID.
Exactly. The first year after COVID. So yeah. It's kind of weird seeing the pictures of them celebrating now with the masks on, that we're a few years out. But yeah, the beautiful thing about the Mount is that you go to a lot of, smaller college basketball games in the area. And look, I love it all, but there's just not like a lot of vibe in the gym. You know what I'm saying, Spencer? Yeah. I mean, you can't really feel it. And at the Mount, when you go to Mount St. Mary's and you catch a game at Knott Arena, I'm telling you, you're going to become a Mount fan. Like it happened to me. I went there as a fan. I got asked to be a PA announcer once filling in, and I was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. And I've never lost the favor. So it's one of the great things that I'm able to do in my life.
I realized I have never asked Joe this, and this is a chance for you two to chirp back and forth since you were on the campus of Mount St. Mary's. So, Joe, your favorite memories, if any, with the Mount St. Mary's, specifically on the basketball side?
I think I might have stolen it for Joe there.
No, well, before I get into my memories, Spencer, in the 2014 game in the first 4, we played Albany. Albany started off with a 21-2 run to start the game. We responded with another 21-2 run.
Yeah, unbelievable. It was the greatest 23-23 game in the history of basketball. You've never seen anything like it. There's 7 minutes left in the first half, and everybody's just shaking their head in the arena. There was like this buzz in the arena. Everyone's like, what is happening? It's 23-23. But Albany was winning 21-2, and then it was unbelievable.
And
unbelievable.
And then I remember like watching that game with my dad, and the end of the game, Whack hits a 3 that goes in and out of the cylinder. I'm just like, oh no. But that was
brutal. We were down 1.
Yeah. So, and then obviously fast forward, my favorite memory was 2017 when we hosted our first time ever. We hosted St. Francis of Pennsylvania, the championship. We won 71-61. And all I can remember is just running onto the court and just celebrating. When court stormings were not getting people hurt.
Joe? Were you arrested?
No.
Are you sure?
He's got a record we don't know about.
No,
he got some records there we have no clue about.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
yes. You don't have to answer that question.
Yeah, the team stormed the courts, which was rightfully so. But just being there, getting a championship, cutting down the net, a piece of the net was just phenomenal. Just
Well, Joe, I'm going to give you one more too. Okay, so I'm going to give you one from the Coach Engelstad era. It's funny how in college basketball, I mentioned it with our 2014 run.
Yes.
Where like a lot of times, and I think this is like this in sports, right? Where a lot of teams, they don't just blow everybody out.
Right.
Not everyone is like the 1991 Redskins of my youth that I love so dearly, where you just destroy everybody and then just walk off with the Super Bowl. The reality is a lot of times for these great teams, there's that one game where it's like you should lose and then you win. And then it just you take off. So the Mount in 2021 with Coach Engelstad, still the head coach here at Mount St. Mary's, that year, because of COVID, only 4 teams of the 10-team NEC made the tournament. So Mount St. Mary's went into the last game, or maybe the second to last game of the regular season, and we were right at the edge of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're playing St. Francis, PA, and the reality is if we lose, almost assuredly, we're going to finish 5th, right? If we win, we got a really good chance to finish like 3rd or 4th. And
I remember the story.
It's just one of these games where we're going to lose the game, and it's just the game felt off the whole game. And then the Mount is down, this is a game where the Mount is probably favored to win. Mount St. Mary's is down by 10 with like 4 minutes left. And our point guard named Damian Chung Kui, an unbelievable story. Look it up. Damian it was just one of these things where he just decided the Mount was not going to lose that game. And he stopped to be honest, he stopped passing the ball. He basically scored every time down the floor. He hits a 3 from like near half court at the buzzer to send it to overtime. The Mount wins in overtime. They didn't lose another game until they were in the NCAA tournament. So that is unbelievable. It's just amazing. I mean, that season would have been a little bit of a frustrating season, right? Because it's like, oh man, we thought we were good enough to be one of the top teams in the league, and we came in 5th, and we just missed the tournament. It would have been like kind of and instead we won the whole thing. I mean, it's really amazing the fine line that sports can draw.
Now, unfortunately, lost to sorry for Spencer. Unfortunately, lost to Texas Southern in the first 4 games, so that was tough.
Yes.
At Assembly Hall.
Yeah, so I was about to ask that question. Somebody help me brush up on Mount St. Mary's history. What's the deepest run they've had in the NCAA tournament?
So the Mount has twice won the so really they've only made the round of 64, but they've made that round many times, 5 times. They've played in the first 4 times, I'm sorry. So they've played either in the first 4 or what was, before that, the play-in game 4 times. And they're 2-2 in Dayton, per se. I guess the last time wasn't in Dayton. It was at Assembly Hall, like Joe just said. But yeah, so – but now that the Mount is in the MAC, they're kind of in a different role. And you can tell with the athletes that we have now, they're just a higher level athlete, and we're able to compete more with the high majors. And if you really look at what has happened in the MAC over the last 15 years, it's pretty remarkable. Just look at the last 2 years. I mean, St. Peter's goes to the Elite 8, and then last year Iona was spectacular. And Iona ends up as a 13 seed, and they have to play UConn, the eventual national champion, and they were beating them at halftime. I kind of feel like if Iona played like any other 4 seed, they probably would have won. Who knows? But you understand what I'm saying. They got a rough draw. So the MAC is a great low major or mid major conference in collegiate basketball.
So part of that as well, just from hearing the memories that you guys have had, and you reflected a little bit as well with your stint in the minor leagues for baseball. And there's certainly clear differences in both of those sports in terms of the memories that are drawn, the kind of high stakes and things like that. I don't know if you could necessarily compare or contrast those two, but is there ever a sense of feeling something more significant at the collegiate level as opposed to the minor league level? Do you ever see that kind of weird dichotomy from your days in both sides?
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. So the way I would look at it is this. Most people would think that calling a basketball game is more challenging because there's less of them. How much prep work do you have to do? I mean, if you're calling a baseball game every day, like, but the reality is, I mean, you really need a baseball game demands more prep work than a basketball game. There's more time. The broadcaster, in many ways, is more important and valuable to the experience in a baseball game. So the way that I like to think of it, and it's not that because obviously baseball, my first love per se, is that I really enjoy and love being the Mounts broadcaster more than anything, even when I was a full-time voice in the minors with Frederick and Bowie. The Orioles were my team growing up, but I still love calling and being a part of the Mount program more than anything in my career. With that being said, the challenge of broadcasting baseball the way that you want to do it, or the way that I think it should be done, is a bigger challenge. And I'd love to talk about that because I think that it's really a lot of fun to take it on. And I think that some of the people that I looked up to and in a way were my professors,
Yeah, right.
my teachers per se, from listening to them call games are either done or probably in the last 5, 10, 15 years of their career. And that makes me very sad, but it's the nature of the beast. Right. I think that calling baseball and understanding how to do so and how to keep things fresh when you've got people that are listening to you every single night is an enormous challenge, and it's so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Adam, another thing I want to transition. We're going to transition just a little bit. I don't know if I told you, but me and Spencer met through the National Sports Media Association. After I graduated my master's in 2021, I interned with Mr. Dave Gorin in the summer of 2021, interviewed guests that were winners. And I don't know if you know this, but Jeff Arnold won the 2023 Maryland Sportscast of the Year.
Which is wonderful. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, he's Orioles Radio Network. Actually used to call Mount St. Mary's basketball game, Spencer, for women's basketball.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So obviously the National Sports Media Association is a great association to help network and help mentor young potential sports broadcasters and just get everyone connected. Now, I'm assuming you've heard about the National Sports Media Association. If you have, what do you think of, what does it mean to you, and what do you think of their goals, and how do you think it helps broadcasters trying to get into the field and get their foot in the door?
That's a great question. I'm not sure on what they're doing to try to get their foot in the door. I guess I do really appreciate, though, the recognition of what they do, for broadcasters at the local level, right? So Jeff Arnold, has this opportunity as the voice of the Orioles. Obviously, I've known Jeff for a long, long time, and I'm very proud of his career. So it's just exciting. I mean, it's so great to see somebody that that you've known from when they were at almost like that number 2 broadcast assistant level in Wilmington, then seeing them get the opportunity in Frederick and move on, to the major leagues, which was an incredible jump. And I mean, but it's wonderful because you see that, right? They do it for all 50 states and for DC and everything. So it's neat. I think it's wonderful, especially that local broadcasters get this kind of recognition.
Oh, absolutely. And especially with the NSMA, it's a lot of the other broadcasters have talked about when they're thankful that it's not like the sports Emmys or the Oscars or Grammys where there's this drama or having to look pleasantly at the other people when your name isn't called on those kind of things. And it's certainly a great peer voting mechanism because I'm a lifetime member of the NSMA. They send us an email every about November, like October, November, and say, hey, send us nominations for who you think for national and the state that you're representing on Sportscasters and Sports Writers of the Year. So that makes it all the better. Who are you going to nominate for 2024? You got any early ideas?
Oh, you know what? Boy, it's a great question. I think that we've got to send out, in the last few years, the great voice of the University of Maryland, Johnny Holiday. Johnny was the voice of the Terps all the way back to 1979. So that's great. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to see Rich Schvatkin get some love too, the voice of the Hoyas in his 50th year this year. And he hasn't been able to, unfortunately, call many wins. I'm hoping that the Hoyas get it turned around and Rich has another great 1 or 2 runs in him in the NCAA tournament. So I grew up listening to those guys. And, when you kind of get into this middle-aged period in your 40s and you see all these guys that you grew up listening to that are kind of near the end of the road, golly, it's like, oh my goodness, you kind of want to hang on to it. So for me, my favorite broadcaster is John Miller, the voice of the San Francisco Giants. And I tell you, I listen to my wife will come down and say, why are you listening to a San Francisco Giants baseball game? But I know that John's not going to be doing it forever. And boy, I mean, there's nothing better than John Miller on a summer night. So it took
a little bit for my family to realize why I have the TV turned extra high up on the volume whenever we're at family gatherings or whatever. And finally, it was kind of more endearing this last Christmas when we were up in up at family's place and there were football games on. And now hearing family say, why he's listening to that is because he's going to be on that television one day. So that part's pretty special when they say that. So I quote the executive director for the NSMA and Dave Gorin, who gives us the adage of, especially in trying to break into the industry, it's not necessarily what you know or who you know, it's who knows you and what can they say about you, whether you're in person or behind the scenes. So on that accord, and I'm sure you could talk about some of the most meaningful relationships that you built throughout your career, but what have you found is the most effective way to build meaningful relationships in our industry?
Oh, that's a great question. In our industry, it's a great question. I think obviously number one, and this is very important. You never want to burn a bridge, because it can be hard. You never know why people are making the decisions they are. So at the beginning of your career, a lot of times it is a broadcaster that might be hiring you. And sometimes you get so excited about a possible opportunity and it falls through and it's just like, it's a killer. Right. Happened to me many times. And many of the people that I ended up in a way striking out with have been so influential in my career, in vouching for me and helping me as I take this crazy circuitous route around minor league baseball and of course with the mound. I would also say that everybody is important. I think that there come some people kind of have this mindset in a way of like, let's talk to this person because I think this person has more value because they are this, or they're older than me, or they have this clout. But the reality is, if you treat everybody and have a lot of fun with everybody, represent yourself, enjoy the work that you're doing, it's going to rub off and people are going to vouch for you. You never know in 5-10 years who's going to be in what position that can help you. That kind of goes a little bit in a better way back to that last point. And the last part I think is really important in my opinion, which is, when you're working calling games, I mean, it's really kind of a glamorous job, even at a very, on a lower scale. When you tell people that don't care at all about sports, they're like, you do what? And they have all these questions, and you guys understand this. And you realize after you get into it, and I start telling Joe, I start telling them stories about the 2021 run to the NCAA tournament, and then they look like they want to jump off a bridge. Then I realize maybe they don't love sports; they just were being nice. But the more important aspect is this: the game that you're calling. It doesn't matter if it's an NFL playoff game or if it is a low A Wednesday night. It is an incredibly important game to certain people, right? And you could be, obviously announcing the blossoming of a career, the ending of a career. These players are putting it all on the line. And the reality of the situation is that if you value every game that you do and put your heart and soul into it, number one, and really respect the game, right? Number one. And then number two, if you enjoy doing the games. So if you're somebody that's doing no preparation, right, and just complaining to the people around you that you have to be there, well, the reality is, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, when you might have a chance to land that big gig, are they gonna be that person that really vouches for you, saying that you should be the one that gets that opportunity? Right. I mean, you have to love it. If you don't love it, not everybody loves being in an arena or at a baseball stadium every single night, let's say, but I that's the thing, is that I have that bug. I mean, I love it, and I almost can't get enough of it, Yeah. And because of that, I have been able to both respect the process that I think it takes to do the best job that I can do. Right. And then number two, also have a lot of fun doing it. And I think that I'm a little bit nuts. I'm a little bit crazy. So I think that a lot of my colleagues over the years we've had so much fun being in ballparks and places together. So I think that that's a big part of it too. I mean, just have a great time and bring good energy.
Adam, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate taking your time and getting to pick your brain. We appreciate it a lot. If you would like to support the podcast, you can download or visit the Buy Me a Coffee app. Yes, Adam, I did say that correctly. Buy Me a Coffee app. You can look up the On the Call
decaf,
podcast.
Baby. No decaf.
Never.
You can look up the On the Call podcast. The link to view our page will also be linked in the description. Spencer and Adam, any last words before we sign off?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, once again, it's a rain delay. Okay, we've been at the ballpark. It's 11:13. We think we're going home. We're resuming the game. We're going to play for another hour and a half. There's 7 people in the crowd. The players don't want to be there. Buy us a coffee so that we can bring you some energy, baby, here at the end of this godforsaken ball
game. Much appreciated, Adam. Thanks for coming on. Looking forward to talking to you over in the next couple of months, weeks, however long we're fortunate enough to be involved in this thing we call life. But appreciate you taking the time, and it was a really great conversation.
Hey, we're all day to day, baby. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Adam. Again,
thank you, guys.
Thank you. And see you next time where Joe and Spencer are on the call.